Hi everyone, welcome back. I realize that I'm really bad at introducing myself in videos. I tend to just be like, here's the information, bye. So I'll try to be more formal from now on. My name is Monica. I run CalifiaStudio.com, which is a online spiritual boutique with handmade items made by me for your emotional and spiritual growth. Lots of cool stuff on there, so check it out. And I also like to make, or I'm starting to, I don't know if I like it, but I'm starting to make videos on my journey as well as little insights and stuff that can hopefully help you with your spiritual journey as well. So in this video today, I'm going to talk about an interesting topic. I haven't really looked to see if it has been addressed in the way that I'm going to address it, but that's fine because this is going to be my take on it from the experience that I've had. So the topic is generational curses. Now, when we think generational curses, it's intuitively what comes to mind is some like bad luck that's happened to you, to your parents, that was probably passed down from their grandparents. It's basically a pattern of cause and effect that nobody knows the reason why, so they call it a curse. Okay. So my personal experience, my first experience with coming across a generational curse was over 10 years ago when I first got into the occult. Somebody that I was learning from asked me if somebody in my family had cursed me at a young age or something like that. And what's funny? Intuitively at the time, I had a feeling like which side it was, but at the same time, I think about it, I'm like, the fuck, why would anyone do that? And this is the kind of thing that's hard to ask your parents, especially if they're not into magic or they're not into spiritual stuff or whatever. So I was basically just kind of thrown into fucking that, and I didn't have a good spiritual foundation back then. So it's sort of, it could send you mentally into like a tailspin, because if your teacher doesn't explain to you exactly what that means, they're just throwing words at you, that in itself could become a curse too, if you don't have the proper tools to understand or manage or to resolve, what it is. So that's where my experiences and my understanding is coming from, was when I first, when somebody first said that to me over 10 years ago. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years was when I really started getting to the root and unraveling, like understanding what that really meant, And in this case, it took me so long to figure it out. Well, one, because I didn't have anybody to learn like teach me. I had to basically figure it out for myself. But also because I was very stuck in sort of a victim mentality. Because when somebody says, "Oh, someone cursed you," it's easy to fall into this mentality where it feels like you don't have control over your own life. That things just keep happening to you, right? So it puts you in a position of feeling disempowered, right? And so part of that in itself is the karma that you have to resolve, because if you're like that, then most likely one of your parents in their own way was like that as well, which got passed down from one of their parents, So basically, that's how I understand a curse to be. Like, you can imagine the ocean and the surface is you. So you can see like the waves and stuff. It's very clear, the sun shining on the water, and you can just, you kind of see what's happening. And then underneath that, there's more currents that maybe aren't as obvious, but they're still there, right? And then underneath that, there's even deeper currents, heavier currents, the foundational currents, that is kind of the root, or like where a generational curse could start. Like, say up here you're not aware of it, but down deep there in the ocean, in those like deep ancestral waters, like that's where the curse could start. And you know, they're deep ocean waves. You can't see them, you can't feel them, but they're still affecting the surface in its own way. Like a wave is like this, and so it'll, you know, affect everything above it by pushing it, you know, eventually until it reaches the surface. And by that time, you're just like, where the fuck is this coming from? Because you can't see where it's coming from. So you have to use, you know, different techniques to kind of like figure out, basically solve the riddle of why am I cursed, or why does this keep happening to me. So basically, when you recognize the pattern, that's yeah, that's like, you can think of it as like, oh no, I'm cursed, or you can think of it as like, oh, life is bringing me something to solve. Like, and then you'll solve it, and then it'll, you know, come back at you again. You'll be like, okay, clearly I didn't solve it the first time, let me do it again, you know. So you can look at it like that too, like piece together explanations for either behaviors, cause and effect, events, things that seem to happen without explanation, but they happen frequently over and over, either to you or another family member. You know, it could be like to a sibling as well, or your cousins, you know. So you start to see patterns, and also give context to those patterns by speaking with your elders, and also studying and understanding the history that they come from as well. Say you had an ancestor that was oppressed. Basically, that oppression, so when somebody is oppressed, right, it means that their spirit has, in a sense, been invaded by another spirit. They didn't have the boundaries or the foundation that was strong enough to push back. And this sense of oppression can kind of affect their sense of pride, or they can carry shame or guilt or even fear. And that those lower frequency emotional vibrations can get passed down to their children, which gets passed down to their children. So your responsibility in this lifetime is to understand where those boundaries kind of were not strong enough, and to build that back so that you can push back, not only for yourself but also for your kin and for your ancestors too. That way your spirit can fully inhabit your body. This takes time and a lot of emotional, it's hard fucking work, this shadow work, but it's worth doing, because when you do it and it's like a celebration, and then you don't pass it on to your children, that karma. Say your dad or your ancestor was like a normal person, but they accidentally tripped an old woman who happened to be a gypsy. So she threw a curse at him, and then his life went to shit. Okay? That's a more like magical story, I guess you can, or legend that could be passed down over time. So you can imagine the story being passed down over time, and seeing it manifest in you, and you understand it, and you feel hopeless because you're like, oh well, they're gypsy, and gypsies are powerful because they know magic and stuff. But the karma of that particular story is more, this is how I see it, is more that your ancestor lost touch with their own form of magic to either defend, fight back, shield, or put a boundary against this energy or this spirit that was coming at them. Does that make sense? So it doesn't necessarily always have to be like like a what I was talking about earlier in regards to the loss of esteem and power, right? That's what I was saying. Because of a force that is so strong that mounts itself upon you. It can be something as simple as an accident and the effects of that accident, but because the person has lost touch with that magical essence that has allowed them to manipulate the elements, manipulate reality so that it worked in their favor, that can be a curse as well. There are some things that can't be resolved just with an altar. You have to go out and give an offering to water, like the ocean or a river or a lake or stream or something like that. And you have to just imagine like the ocean, the water levels have risen or fallen, or there's a little bit of, water is life. And so to imagine your ancestors each touching this body of information of life over time, sometimes in order to heal that far back, you have to give an offering to that collective life stream to get the energy moving. Because say if you do it at home, you may only be able to address just your parents and maybe your grandparents. But to go a little bit further back, I would suggest giving offerings in the ocean to heal that DNA further, or to ask it to kind of open up to you, like reveal to you more information about what could be, still hindering you, as well as your family's karma, DNA, things like that. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. Getting cursed is not a boogeyman thing, I don't want you to go through the same shit that I did when somebody threw that spell at me. I mean, I'm glad they did for a reason, right? But fuck, that shit took me a long time to figure out. But I'm here now. I built the foundation needed to, give you the information now so that, you won't feel as lost as I did when I first started. So I hope this video is informational for you. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys again next time.